Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. And today we have John Sales from the Vermont Food Bank who's joining us. Thanks for being here, John. Be great to have you and talk about the nutritional needs and the work that the food bank's doing to help older Vermonters and anybody else who's in need of food around the state. So thank you again for being here today. I really appreciate it. And I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Representative Noyes, and hi, everybody. A few names I recognize. Good to see people. I'm just going to go through a quick presentation, which is really just an update of where the Vermont Food Bank is right now. And then we can talk a little bit about the specific needs of older Vermonters, which, we see a lot of, and sort of where the different kinds of services intersect. Can everybody see my presentation? My screen might be flashing a little bit. The computer's acting a little bit funny.
Yep. We can see.
Good, thanks. So this is where we are right now at the Vermont Food Bank in April of 2024. Let's see if I can get this to... There we go. Okay. So the Vermont Food Bank is right now seeking a $5 million appropriation from the Vermont legislature, and we have nothing in the House budget as it is right now. We're working with senators to see if we can find some one-time money. Last year, the food bank received $3 million in one-time money, which we're using. 50% of that money right now is going to purchase Vermont grown and created foods that are being distributed for free throughout the state. And 13% of the about 12.5 million pounds of food distributed last year was Vermont grown and Vermont grown and raised food. A lot of dairy and meat as well as produce. There's been a lot of things happening in the last several years since COVID that's been impacting folks across Vermont, including older Vermonters. There were SNAP, which is 3 Squares Vermont here, formerly known as food stamps, during COVID emergency allotments, in which everyone who received SNAP benefits got the maximum benefit for that family size, regardless of what their income was. This was especially impactful for older Vermonters because of Social Security, many older Vermonters have a little more income than some lower income younger people, and therefore tend to get a smaller SNAP benefit. However, in Vermont, the 3 Squares Vermont benefit for people over 65 comes in cash. So it's not an EBT card. So our older Vermonters have more flexibility in how they use that money. As we all know, flooding exacerbated really difficult conditions. And then all the other support systems that were out there for folks, the stimulus payments, the housing and rental subsidies have all gone away now. And so across the state, the food bank is seeing much larger need, all of our partners. You can see here, this is the pounds of food distributed by the food bank. And you can see in 2022, we were distributing around 1 million pounds a month. And it was staying from 2021 at about 1.29 million pounds a month as an average. It's now up to about 1.25 million pounds a month and holding steady. You see a lot of spikes and dips in there, and that's just the usual distribution, weather that cancels something, or we get extra food in and that goes out. So we were really looking at the averages there. Really important is to look at the amount of food that we're purchasing. So food banking grew up really on donated food. And over the last 10 years or so, the amount of donated food, the increase in that has decreased, and that includes federal food. We get food from the USDA and a number of different programs, including the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, which is for people over 60 in Vermont who are income eligible. It's a box of staples that gets distributed once a month. But you can see here from pre-COVID, we were purchasing, close 16.5% of our food. That's now up to over 24% and continues to rise. And this is a trend across the country with food banks, putting a lot of financial pressure on us because we are raising money philanthropically to purchase that food and give it away at no cost. I really wanted to get into this a little bit. In 2024, we did a survey of all of our partners across the state. That's 300 partners. As you can see, it says 220 here. The balance of those partners are schools and hospitals and places where we, as the food bank, do direct distribution. So they weren't surveyed because we already surveyed ourselves. But we had a 67% response rate, which is really dynamite. As you can see, we had people responding from every county in Vermont. The lines just basically are showing us certain counties that have more partners than others. On average, across all of those who responded, they're seeing a 35% increase in the number of guests who are coming to our food shelf and meal site partners across the state. And many were reporting higher ranges than that. There's a few that were reporting more than 100%, more than double the number of people coming really since 2023, so since the end of COVID. And we asked, well, why do you think people are coming? Or what are your biggest challenges you're experiencing? The top three were more people coming, and the people who are coming are seeking more food per visit. Many food shelves, although the food bank doesn't control the distributions at our partners. They set the rules. A lot of them allow people to come once a week or once every other week. So people are looking for more food per visit. And then, as you can see, 70% have saw an increase. So people coming who they have never seen before at those food shelves. They wondered what the challenges were. We asked what the challenges that they've experienced in the past year. Of course, the flooding has had a huge impact on our network. A lot of them are at max capacity. They're increasing hours of operation. Their food costs are going up because even the food shelves and meal sites, on average, get about 70% of their food from the Vermont Food Bank. They gather the rest in the community, and they also do purchasing. So they're purchasing from the local grocery store or local wholesalers and raising money locally to do that. It says a decrease in free items from Vermont Food Bank, and that's because we've seen a decrease since COVID in the amount of money it's coming into the food bank, and so we've had to decrease the amount of food that we're purchasing and then distributing at no cost. The money's just not there. That's one of the reasons we're seeking more money this year than last from the legislature. And then aging staff and board members and volunteers of our network partners. And we're also seeing an increase in older Vermonters seeking food assistance at food shelves and our Veggie Van Go drive-up food distributions. Just a couple examples. FoodWorks in Brattleboro saw a 13% increase in 2023 over 2022. The Colchester Food Shelf, 31%. Capstone Community Action in Barry. They serve Washington and Orange counties and Lamoille, 51% increase. And NECA Northeast Kingdom Community Action, serving really Essex, Orleans, and Caledonia counties, 159% increase. Now, some of that is they've increased their capacity to serve, but the people are there when they increase their capacity. We also asked how things have changed just recently and over the past 3 years. So 2022, the pandemic era benefits were still in force. And so people were getting extra Three Squares benefits as well as other supports. By 2023, we learned that those SNAP benefits, the enhanced benefits, would end in March. And as soon as that was announced and people were aware of that, we started to see an uptick in folks coming to the whole network. They were looking to kind of bank some of those last larger SNAP benefits so that they would last longer. And now in 2024, all those benefits have gone and are gone and have been gone. We had the flooding, we've had inflation, which, while the rate of inflation has decreased, as you all know, prices haven't come down. So we're all still paying higher prices. And I think for food, that's close to 25% higher than it was pre-pandemic. That's all I had there. I just wanted to, I'll stop sharing. I also wanted to share just a little breakdown of all those partners the food bank works with. The food pantries and food shelves, places where people can go in and shop. There's about 136 of those all across the state. And most communities have some kind of a food shelf. There are 9 specifically meal sites, which are just prepared meals, often in a congregate setting. There are 14 partners that are a combination. They have a food shelf and a meal site. I guess Feeding Chittenden, which is our largest partner in Burlington, would be an example of that. And 24 specifically older Vermonter meal sites. A lot of those are the area agencies on aging and the other senior centers around the state. Now, a lot of those also supply or run the Meals on Wheels program, but the food bank in some communities, the Meals on Wheels program gets some food from the food bank and prepares that. Places that make their own meals, and many, as you all know, they're contracting out for those meals to be prepared. And so we have kind of a mixed relationship with Meals on Wheels sites. Some of them we're partners, and many of them we are not partners. And finally, I just thought this was interesting. A board member sent this to me. It's an Aspen Institute study that just came out, a publication, and I'll put the link in the chat after I'm done talking when I can get back to that. But the analysis was about older adults and financial shocks. But one of the pullouts was the analysis found that 47%, this is nationally, of older adults lack the liquid savings that they need to be protected from a financial shock. And I think we've all heard that the statistic that like 50% of the people in this country would have a hard time with a $1,000 expense coming up. And clearly the same is true. And I know many of you know this for our older Vermonter partners. We hear from folks a lot, particularly at our Veggie Van Goes, we do about 25 around the state. There are drive-up events with fresh food, very convenient for older Vermonters because they're very accessible. You just drive up, you drive your car through. Volunteers will put fresh food into your car and you can drive off. They're all around the state. They're very accessible. There's no screening for eligibility. You just show up and you get food. And we tend to see a lot of older Vermonters coming to those. And then I don't know if anyone has seen or heard of Bess O'Brien's new film called Just Getting By, which is now touring the state. I would encourage you all, if you get a chance, to go see it. And it highlights several of our older Vermonter neighbors out there and their stories. And as you all know, Bess is just a master at engaging people to tell their own stories. So I'd be happy to answer any questions and engage in a discussion about where the food bank fits in.
Great, thank you. Representative Torrey.
Hi, thank you, John. I'm Representative Torrey from Moortown. And I'm remembering in 2022, the Vermont Food Bank had a number of pilots, and I think one of them was a meals program for older Vermonters in particular that had like more of a medical diet focus. How did that end up? I kind of lost track of it.
Yeah, it's actually ongoing. We're in the middle of it right now. It's a 2-year pilot. And what we did, this was using some of the funds that we got in 2020, back in 2020 from McKinsey Scott. We had one of the McKinsey Scott grants. And we took a cohort of folks who were getting the CSFP program in the Rutland area and created an online order ahead model. So folks were continuing to get the government commodity box, but also they were able to place an order from it's still ongoing, from a variety of fresh foods. It's produce, it's shelf stable items, it's meats and dairy, and then that gets home delivered to the folks. One of the learnings we've had so far is, probably not a surprise, a lot of our older neighbors are challenged with the online ordering system. And so what's happened is a lot of people have ended up just calling in their orders. But we're seeing a lot of success. People are very happy with the program, with the variety of foods. And that's one of the things, as we come to the end of this calendar year, we're going to be analyzing the pilots and looking to see what pieces of them we want to ramp up and continue on.
Great, thank you. Breck, I see your hand up.
John, thanks for this really important summary. I'm curious about one aspect of the survey results that you mentioned. You said that there are more people, but there's also per individual asking for more food. Do you know what's driving that dynamic?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it really is, as you know, and this is anecdotal from talking to folks. It's the economic pressures. You know, when you think about getting food assistance, it really is just financial assistance, right? Food insecurity is financial insecurity. And folks are just facing pressures. You know, rents have gone up a lot, and they're not rising as fast, but haven't come down. And food prices have gone up a lot. And so we're just seeing budgets stretched more. And what people tend to do, which is logical, it makes sense, is to find out ways to supplement that income. And one way is to be able to get more food. And so we're just seeing people looking for more opportunities to stretch that budget.
Yeah, that's a really interesting observation. Thanks, John.
John, one of the questions I thought of was, we're seeing a reduction in the SNAP benefits right now. Is there anything in Congress to, help with that now that it's gone down, the impact that's having on especially rural communities? Is there discussion at the federal level to reinstate some of that or to somehow deal with the inflationary impact that we've had?
Yes. So the USDA just prior, or it was actually kind of the beginning of COVID, I think, had reassessed what they call the Thrifty Food Plan. So they have they do a survey of a basket of market goods, and that's what they use to set the benefit level for SNAP benefits. And the USDA reassessed the thrifty food, and the benefit levels actually went up about just over 20%. And then after that, we had the emergency allotments. Since the emergency allotments went away, USDA is looking into ways to do a regular assessment of the Thrifty Food Plan. There's also I think it's called the Moderate Food Plan, which is a level above the Thrifty Food Plan. And there are bills every year in Congress to to change the SNAP program so that it utilizes of the Thrifty Food Plan, which would also increase benefit levels. Also not surprising is it's really tough. It's a really tough political environment right now. We're part of the Feeding America network, and we have a very strong national lobbying presence. And we've got a great delegation in Vermont here. All three of our members are really on this. And we're constantly trying to find ways to enhance the Three Squares Vermont benefits. But I can't say that I'm really optimistic it's going to happen. Certainly in the next year or so. We'll see what happens after the election.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions?
I do. I just have a comment. First of all, John, thank you so much for all of this, and thanks for everything the food bank does. It's really huge. And we've certainly partnered with you. I run Hands, and so we get food to seniors who are lower income. And one of the projects that we've really been striving for is to include more of the seniors and the immigrant and refugee populations and BIPOC populations, because they were, as we all know, especially now, really left behind during COVID. And one of the challenges that you brought up in terms of the flooding really affected some of our programming, because AALV had lots of folks, many of them seniors, farming down in the Intervale, and that was completely flooded. And then some of the other culturally friendly foods that we were getting from local farmers, they lost their farms in the flooding. So it's tremendously affected. You know, we want so much local food that just makes sense on so many levels. It's healthier, it's cheaper, there's less transportation costs. But then when we're losing farmland like that to flooding, it just exacerbates that. So I just wanted to point that out, that's another aspect of just trying to raise food locally. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And we had the food bank purchases culturally responsive, locally grown foods by our New American populations for distribution to their neighbors. And we actually ramped up those purchases from folks in other parts of the state after the Intervale was flooded, because there were a bunch of families who were subsistence farming basically on that land. And so we tried to partner and fill in that gap. Something we're working on is to try and make sure that we're bringing proportional assistance to the disproportionately impacted populations. And that includes, our immigrant populations.
Yeah, we especially utilized all the beans, the dried beans and rices and everything. That was great. And it's not one population. Each of these cultures would like a different kind of rice, a different kind of beans. So we really appreciated being able to fill in the gaps with that. Thank you so much.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you so much. Doing some great work, and really appreciate you taking the time to join us today at the caucus and kind of give us an update. So thank you so much. And yeah,
I'll stick around and listen if I hear.
Well, I mean, we pretty much, unless anyone has any announcements they'd like to make or anything else they'd like to talk about, we may be pretty much done. Anybody else out there want to bring anything up? Yeah, go ahead, Tracy.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much, John. This was so helpful. And I always appreciate sort of focusing on the food insecurity part as a larger discussion for the economic challenges that we know so many of our older Vermonters are facing. I'm with Age Well. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you in person, but I'm curious to know, I know Courtney at SVCOA said that she's part of the pilot project talking about your programming with some of the AAAs. I'm wondering if you could just You mentioned briefly how you're engaging with Meals on Wheels programs, and I'm curious to know if you could talk a little bit more about that. And are you offering therapeutically tailored food, or what does that look like?
Yeah, we are not doing that as the food bank, where there's a really robust national conversation about medically tailored meals and medically tailored grocery packages and therapeutic meals. And it's something we've looked into, and it would it's something that we're going to need to partner with others like the AAAs on, because it would be a whole new line of business for the food bank.
Yeah.
Because those meals, they have to be, it's like this like the pilot that we're doing in Rutland. It's a whole different business to be fulfilling orders, which we fulfill orders for our partners now, but it's different to fulfill individual orders for people,
Yeah.
because those need to be packed and then distributed to wherever they need to be. And so it's been kind of a little bit of a tough nut to crack. And frankly, one of the challenges and a little bit of a frustration is that our healthcare community seems kind of preoccupied with surviving. And it's hard to get their attention, and they're a natural partner. So it's a combination of lack of bandwidth at the food bank and just lack of finding the
Right.
funding sources to really start lifting this up.
Well, we at Agewell, we do offer medically tailored meals. We have 7 different types, so we would be maybe a logical partner. So keep that in mind. Of course, the caveat would be that the individual served would need to be over 60 or under 60 on long-term Medicaid. So, but that is a gap that we fill, and I just was curious to know, as conversations. And even healthcare entities are talking much more. For instance, MVP does offer mom's meals as part of their Medicaid program. I'm not sure what other carriers do. And I'm not saying that is a natural partner for you, but there's a lot of conversation going on around medically tailored meals. And again, we would love to talk with you, John.
Okay.
All
Glenn,
right.
it's been a while.
Oh, there's Glenn.
Well, we can't hear you, Glenn. Sorry.
Did you join with audio, Glenn? Maybe put it in the chat.
Glenn, it might be your physical microphone might have a mute button on it, not on the computer. No?
Sorry. All right. Still trying to
Unmute.
Mag, did you?
I think we can hear Glenn if he speaks.
Oh,
It came in and out for a minute.
no. Can't hear him here. Sorry. All right. All right. Well, thank you. Glenn, you want to try to throw something in the chat? Maybe I can read it. Typing. Okay. Looking for the cost of not providing good nutrition as another way of looking at the issue.
Yeah, in Massachusetts, they did a really big study on that. And the cost is enormous. Yeah. I had a number a while ago, but I honestly don't remember what it was, but I'll look for that and see if I can share it.
Yeah, even with just people having the health to get around their house, and if one person doesn't have the food and they fall, just the hospitalization can be pretty costly for sure. When it's just making sure they have proper nutrition or medically tailored meals, can make a big difference for sure. Okay. All right. Anything else anyone wants to add today? All right. Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And we'll be back next week. So thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.